I am Brad Keelor. They are Joe Hagerty and Peggy Hagerty Duffy. Next on Director's Cut, find out their favorite Father's Day memories of all time. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Director's Cut. My name is Brad Keelor. I'm the director of the Geo-Institute, and that is why we call this show Director's Cut. Every single week, I sit down with a different GI member who has stories to tell, usually about themselves, sometimes about other stuff. Some of them are personal, some are professional, but all of them are fun. If you don't know anything about the Geo-Institute, after you watch this today, you should head over to geo-institute.org, and there you will find out we are a technical society with about 12,000 members, most of whom are geotechnical engineers and or geologists. And if you like what you see today, and I think you will, you should click subscribe and get notifications, and we will let you know every time we post something new to the YouTube channel. By now, astute viewers, you have noticed that there is not one, but two Director's Cut guests this week, and it is for the following reason. If you look at your calendar, you will note that Sunday, this very Sunday, is Father's Day in the United States and in many other countries as well. So, of course, for Director's Cut, we have to have, and these words are capitalized, a very special Father's Day episode. And for that very special Father's Day episode, coming to us all the way from Louisville, Kentucky, and its environs, it's Joe Hagerty, Professor Emeritus from the University of Louisville, and his daughter, Peggy Hagerty Duffy, President of Hagerty Engineering and Interim CEO of the Association of Drill Shaft Contractors. How about that?
That was amazing.
We will ask them 10 questions, just as we do every week on Director's Cut, and there are two that are always the same, and we will lead off with one of those. You each must describe your jobs in 45 seconds.
Yeah, I listen more than anything else, and particularly to my daughter, and give her feedback, and then I have opinions of my own. That's a problem sometimes, but that's usually what helps.
I like that description. Okay, my job in 45 seconds or less is to, this much now is to evaluate things that are going on in the environment and figure out how they affect sinkhole development and erosion, et cetera. But most of my job is, let's say, talking to people and evaluating people and working with people and telling my dad when he's wrong.
So
those were very
the other way. It's much more on that last thing than anything else.
Those were very complimentary answers. And that's complimentary with an E, I guess,
Yeah.
not with an I, right?
Yeah.
So we have to get right into the fun questions here too. And for Father's Day, we've got a lot of special ones in here that hopefully are going to make everybody laugh. And this one's for both of you. You got to decide what answer you're going to order in. What is something about the other person that makes you laugh every single time it happens or you think about it?
I get to go first. So when I did my thesis, this was my thesis advisor. And, you know, this is in the old days, and I turned things in and then I would get back revisions. And the first time I got back revisions, I almost cried because I'm flipping through and there's red, he's bled all over it. And then I realized, hey, it's none of my conclusions, my methodology, it's good. I had split infinitives everywhere. And to this day, you'll hear me, I'll be in a meeting and I'll correct somebody, that's a split infinitive. Or I'm correcting people's reports. No, that's a split infinitive. And when they get all upset about it, I think of my dad and I laugh.
The other side of that is, as you heard, that's what happened when she was doing her thesis work. So after I retired from the university and I become a full-time employee of Hagerty Engineering with the president that you see here, I had occasion to go out and look at a job and then write up a report. And I came in and I put it on her desk, and she opened her desk drawer and got out this enormous red pencil. And she says, now it's my turn. So there you go. See, it comes back to haunt you. And every time I hear this song, your time will come, I think of it. My time came. So I got with the red pencil everywhere.
I do love this. This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart because in the second year of grad school, I wrote a paper, beautiful paper, by the way, about 25 pages long on, I did science and technology policy for my master's program, and it was on 409 fraud in Nigeria. So when they send you the email and they say, we're going to send you $15 million if you give us your bank account, 25-page paper on that. I get it back, red all over it. Same deal, split infinitives.
See, and did you know, this is important because I learned this much later. Technically speaking now, it's kind of like dangling prepositions. Technically speaking, the reason that it's incorrect is not really incorrect in our language. In Latin, those infinitives are all one word. So technically then when it brought over, you're splitting something. So I've had more than one scholar tell me that actually in English, it's not incorrect.
It's a responsibility of scholars to do that kind of thing.
You're also the second guest we've had on recently. The last one was Rodolfo Sancio from Geo-Syntech, whose father was their grad school advisor, and he had similar tales of woe there.
It went beautifully. There are more than a couple of nights where, my dad came into the lab and I'm down there at 1 o'clock in the morning just to make sure I'm still alive. I had a lot of people who would say, oh, that's nice. That's easy for you. Your dad's just going to pass you through. And I was like, are you kidding? He's correcting my split infinitives. Do you really think he's just passing me through?
That is great. So we're even going to ask a research and practice question here that's special for Father's Day because we have you both in front of us. Joe, I guess we'll start with you on this one. What areas of research or practice have been passed down from you to Peggy? Can you think of anything that you actively tried to pass down or maybe something that just accidentally happened over the years?
I think that the biggest thing was go out in the field, particularly with students. I used to take them on field trips all the time because that's where all the fun is. And if you got a good field trip, you got the people working on the job to talk to your students, and then they had the excitement for the rest of their time. So I would always say, go out in the field, see what's going on. You don't have to do the numbers yet. You don't need a computer to use your eyes and see what's happening. I got into doing this with bank erosion and found out there was a whole lot of unexplained things, and ended up going to the Ohio River, the Monongahela River, the Wabash, the Illinois, the Mississippi, Missouri. And I had a friend who went to China and called me later and said, all those things you said in your lecture about this bank erosion, I saw those on the Li River in China. And I thought, well, yeah, same river, same soil, same water, why not? But that was really one of the good things. And I guess the other was just being here in Kentucky. A whole lot of blasting occurs, used to be even more here in Kentucky, with mining, with road construction. And I got into working on that and worked on it for 40 years. And I think Peggy keeps track of the numbers more than I do, but I think I probably looked at more than 1,000 cases. And that was really good to get out and always have some person on the other side give you a really tough cross-examination, and you had to make sure you really were saying things right. That was really beneficial to me, and I think I've passed it on. We worked on a number of cases together as consultants where it ended up, you're going to go to court, you got to really know what you're doing and what you're saying.
And so the passing down started long before the actual college career education, et cetera. Because, when you're a teenager and you just want money, and my dad would go, he would drive to Eastern Kentucky for these trips, and he would go and he would write down a bunch of notes, and he wanted to be able to write up his notes in the car on the way back. So he would pay us to drive him. And so there's nothing more exciting than like 2 weeks after you've gotten your license and you're 16 and you're on some mountain road and all of a sudden some big coal truck is in your, back window, and you've never driven this fast before, you've never driven on a road this steep before, you're trying to remember all this stuff they were just talking about on this, whatever had exploded. And, but it's, I'm here for the cash. He's paying me to drive him back so he can write up his notes. And we did the same thing on his bank erosion. He had a local research project, and it was in the summer. It was out in this canoe. You go out to 18 Mile Island and, take some readings. And so he would pay us to go with him. Same thing. You're helping guide the canoe. My big thing was I kept turning it over because there were these giant spiders up on the riverbanks. I would freak out about the spiders, and he's enough. But it was that erosion project, the research project. I never intended to go into engineering, but it was enough for me that everything that he said, I liked putting it all together. I liked looking around and figuring out that all these mechanisms work together to make, there was a problem, there's an engineering problem, and it didn't necessarily have to do with math. Eventually it would, but it was getting out in the field and figuring out what was going on. So it all started in a canoe.
And then going back to the university was really good, because then you could get into the math. And I had a whole slew of graduate students who wrote computer programs and analyses on exactly the phenomenon she was looking at, and could give you the numbers and prove that it's all right. First time I ever did this, one of the students came up to me later and said, gosh, I don't know what went wrong. And he showed me these drawings of what the riverbank would look like according to his analysis. And I pulled out a picture and I said, you mean like that? It was exactly the same. So that's what you want. You want to go observe and you really get your head around things. Then you can get the math in.
Well, an A+ to both of you then, I think, for, well, Joe, as you started out with saying listening was super important, and then to you for doing such a great job teaching there. A lot of stories come up during these interviews, and recently we recorded GeoLegends interview with Bob Holtz from the University of Washington, and
friend of mine.
Joe, your name came up, and Steve Kramer and Bob were talking about the jokes that were hidden or not hidden in the Holtz-Kovacs textbook. And so I need to know, is it true, the story that I heard, that you required students to find the jokes that were in this textbook? And how did that start?
Well, just by getting the textbook, knowing Bob Holtz, reading through, seeing it, and just start laughing. And then your other faculty member, who's another geotech, starts laughing too. And we said, hey, this is what students need to be able to do. They need to, every once in a while, get real, relax, laugh, and they'll come back more interested in what they're reading.
Figanewtons. It's all about the Figanewtons. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you have to get the textbook.
That's what we do. Throw one of these jokes halfway out there and make them go read and find out where it was.
Was there anything else like that you did over the years where you used, I don't know, I don't know what you would call that, a non-traditional method of teaching, something that you just brought into class because you thought that it would work and help them remember and maybe even help make the students a little bit better, well-rounded?
Well, I used to do things like this. I remember one time, just to be, kind of have fun, I gave an exam in statics, a fairly basic course. And I said, I'm sure that all of you will be very close to, in fact, you may all get 100 on this exam. And they just looked at me like, you're crazy. I had arranged three questions on the exam, problems to work. The answers were 1, 0, 0. So if you all worked it all right, you got 100. Boy, they really got upset with me. And when I explained, there were some of the best students in class who worked all the problems 4 times because they couldn't believe the answers came out that way, which was another lesson. Do it the way you're supposed to do it, and then have faith in your answer. So I had a lot of fun with it. They didn't have much fun, but I did. I thought it was good.
You also helped me with the, I think it was a geomechanics lab or something. So the other professor, geotechnical professor that he taught with, Dr. Ulrich, would always make little comments about some of the phrases that we used in class, specific geotechnical things. And so it was Halloween one year, and we got a one of those cutout paper skeletons that you can pose, and we put glue all over it. And then we went down to the lab and we got a bunch of soil samples and we sprinkled it so that the soil would stick. So we pinned it to his door, and that was the soil skeleton. And yeah, that was a surprise for the morning. We were so proud of ourselves, and we had help. And then, of course, Dr. Bob had to come in and, who put this on my door? But he was laughing the whole time.
And he struck back. He went out to a nearby dump and found someone had thrown away a toilet, a commode. He brought it in, he put it on the desk in front of the class and said, when you turn in your papers from the exam, throw them in there. That's what you got to do. You got to lighten up a little bit.
So we have one question that's really geared toward Peggy now. And we mentioned at the top that you're the interim CEO of the Association of Drilled Shaft Contractors. This is a little bit of a different role for you, being on the on our side, on the association side. What has been the most different thing for you about making that transition, being on the other side, than being out in practice and being a member of these groups?
The biggest difference is, as by definition, ADSC is a trade association. So its mission is to advance the business interests of that industry. The biggest difference is, as an engineer, I am an engineer. I have a job site. I have to look at it and say, what is the best solution for those conditions and for whatever is being built? It might be this technology, it might be that technology. In the role at ADSC, my job is to advance the interests of that particular industry, drilled shafts, anchored earth retention, and micropiles. So there are a lot of other things that are associated, actually things I really like, things like workforce development, figuring out how to get more people to get into the trades or just to get into our world as a whole, geotechnical engineers too, trying to figure out kind of more of the economics and financial end of things, which as a business owner, I've been in touch with that for almost 30 years, but it's a little bit different angle. And it's interesting to look at things from a large scale, from a 40,000 foot view and say, how do we make things better as a whole, as opposed to, this job site or this project? So I like it.
And it hasn't worn you down yet.
It's been, 5 months, 6 months? Ask me. No, I'm kidding. No, it has not. The great thing is, I think we have, first of all, ADSC has wonderful members. I've been involved since I was 19. My dad did training with ADSC, and I was the student assistant who gave out papers, but it also was great because right when I got out of school, I was also a scholarship recipient with ADSC. And the members bent over backwards to say, hey, if you need anything, well, I absolutely took them up on that. And I would be on drilled shaft jobs with, different companies like McKinney and Long Foundation Drilling. Hey, I have a few questions. Well, a few questions, like 1,000 questions. And they were always patient, always explained to me, even things that I wasn't specifically there to do. Why are you doing that? Why are you tying your steel that way? Why are you blah, 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 blah? They were wonderful. I think our foundations industry, the GI, DFI, PDCA, I think we have our own little area of the construction world. I like it. I like it that it's smaller, but I think everybody knows each other. And I think that it's it's a high quality end of the construction world. And I really appreciate that.
And that's a pretty good segue into the next question, which is the other one that we ask everybody when they come on Director's Cut. This is for both of you again. How did you first get involved in ASCE and GI?
ASCE.
Well, I came through the University of Louisville. That was a 5-year program, a lot of emphasis on doing. We used to have 5-hour courses, which involved 3-hour design lab. So the emphasis was on practice. So when I started going through this, I wanted to be right out there in the middle. And the avenue was be a student member of ASCE. And then that goes up to be a regular member of ASCE, getting through the various grades. And it was just natural for me. Where else would I be?
I also did the same thing. We had very active ASCE chapter at U of L. And I served in various roles. We did all sorts of student outreach. We did, competitions, that kind of thing. And then senior year, I had agreed begrudgingly, because I was supposed to be doing something else, to be vice president. I said, okay, fine. I'll be vice president. I'm supporting this. I don't have that much time, but I can handle that. And 2 weeks into the semester, the president said, I really can't do this. Anyway, here you go. You're president now. So it was a throw you into the deep end, but it was great. And I made such great connections through ASCE, and we had a great chapter, and we had so much fun.
Good stories for both of you, and you stuck with it, and you're still here. Good message for all of those students who are transitioning into professional membership right now.
Yeah.
We have to ask about Orvis. For those of you not in the know out there in viewer land, it is the Ohio River Valley Soil. Is it symposium or seminar?
Seminar.
Should know that by now.
Keep it simple.
You are past your 50th Orvis. It started at the end of the 1960s, I believe. It is a jewel. There you go. It is a jewel in the crown of all the regional geotechnical conferences around the country. I love going. I think I've been to 4. It's a lot of fun. What led to the creation of Orvis?
Well, a lot of people, we had the Kentucky Geotechnical Engineering Group. A lot of people decided, hey, this was, at that time, was pretty new. So we were really interested and got into it. I was kind of like a little bit of a Joe come lately, getting out of graduate school, and they just pulled me in and said, yeah, come on, we'll give you something to work on. First thing that we came up with as a big thing to do was we'd had a lot of meetings, and people would say, oh, I got this problem or that problem. And we decided we were going to have a big meeting, a seminar where people got up and talked about all the problems that they had. If they had solutions, share the solutions with everybody. That was the way it was. And people, were saying, I don't know if people will get up and talk about how they've done something well. Boy, you just watch them. They do. And if they had problems, what was really good is you'd get up and talk about a problem you had, and then you go for a coffee break and you find out 5 or 6 people around you saying, yeah, I did that too. And that's what it's all about. It's still going 52 years later. And, we didn't just rely on ourselves. We got people, we got George Sires, we got Wayne Clough, we got Ralph Peck, everybody came. Well, you got answers to these problems? It was really interesting because sometimes they'd say, no, I really don't. That's really interesting. And then you'd find out there was a big research project in leading universities next. So it's always been there. It goes from starting in Lexington, and next year it was in Louisville, and then up to the Cincinnati area, and it's still rotating just like that.
Do you feel like the focus has changed over the years? I mean, I think it's really interesting that when you started describing it, you started talking about problems or failures, because not a lot of people do that. Do you feel like the focus of it has changed over the years, or no?
No, I think that was the key, because even people who were very successful people would talk about problems that they had worked on and had solved, or that they were still working on. And that gave you a lot of hope. You're just one of the grunts down in the trenches, and here's a guy who's world famous, and he's telling you he still doesn't understand it all, and telling you how to go out there and observe and put your thoughts together and do it. Really
so I'm going to put you both on the spot here. What is your favorite presentation that you've seen at Orvis throughout the years? Or maybe if you can't do favorite, the most memorable would also be? Dr.
Peck. The last time he was here. The last time Dr. Peck was in Louisville was probably my favorite.
Yeah, he was, his eyesight was failing him. So he got up and gave a speech, essentially, going back through his history, talking about his father working on railways in the Rockies. And he did all this with no notes because he couldn't see his own notes. And it was really inspiring. It was a good thing to, it was just somebody opening up their lives to you.
Yeah.
And that was really good. And of course it helped that he was the guy he was.
Yeah.
It was an interesting life to open up.
It was very interesting.
Great to remember Ralph Peck right now. His birthday is coming up, June 23rd. So we'll, of course, be marking that. GI, he would have been 110 this year, I believe. The other thing I'll do a pitch for you guys is please watch the Geo-Institute website for details on Orvis. It comes up in November every year. As soon as we have information about it, we will post it on our website on the events page and link over to the site that is created for this Orvis, which is this going to be the 53rd, guys, or?
53rd, I think that's right.
Yeah, if you count all the years, it's 53rd. You know, we had problems with COVID and minor things like that, but we are rising above.
Excellent.
We'll have to wear masks and stand 6 feet apart, but we'll still have Orvis.
And we look forward to being out there this fall. We have 3 questions left to go. They're both for both of you. Peggy, I think we're going to start with you on this one because I mean, I'm sure Joe's passionate about this too. I have long said to you how much I long to have a massive event in the Washington, D.C. area that's like the Kentucky Derby, because we don't have anything that just takes over the way that does to Louisville. So describe your perfect Derby weekend.
Well, first of all, it's not Derby weekend, it's Derby week.
Okay, then go for the whole thing. Give me start to finish.
You have to start. You start on Monday with the
You can
dinner.
have a 6-day weekend. I mean,
okay. I can go with that. So you start on Monday, which is the dinner. It's called the Race for the Chaplaincy, and it's the chaplaincy at the track that they minister to mostly to the jockeys. It's a lovely event for a great cause. Tuesday tends to be a little bit more laid back. You have the bed races, you have the Run for the Rosé. A few of these things have been broken up in the last couple of years because of COVID, but they're great events. Wednesday, this great steamboat race. Go out by the side of the river. You watch steamboats race.
It's not fixed. No matter what they say, it's not fixed.
No, not fixed at all. If you can get tickets to ride on them, the real key is to have the appropriate beverages to enjoy the festivities. So on Wednesday, depending on what your schedule is, that's when most of the corporations go out to the track. They'll have tents and things like that. Thursday is what we call Thurby, and it was developed as, as more out of towners started coming to Derby and, the other one. It was the locals' day at the track. It's now getting huge, but Thurby is nice and laid back. This year there was a band in the infield that was really good. You go, you spend all day, you make a couple of bets, whatever. Friday is the Kentucky Oaks, which is just about as big as Derby. Oaks are my favorite. It's the Derby for the fillies. And so a lot of people are like, oh, does that mean that I go and there's that one race? No. A race day has like 11 or 12 races. So you go to brunch someplace in town. There are a couple of local favorite spots. You have your mimosas, your Bloody Marys. You go to the track. You get there 11 noon-ish. Have a Lily, which is the drink for Oaks Day. You stay at the track. You have a lovely Oaks Day. You get up the next morning. You go again. You go someplace for a lovely Derby brunch. And then you go out to the track for Derby, and you have a beautiful Kentucky Derby day.
A lot of people end up the Kentucky Derby day. They have get-togethers with their friends.
Yeah. And
it's usually standing around talking about what bets you lost and you didn't make it big, but that's part of it too.
That's right. I will admit there have been Derby, actually Oaks and Derby days where I have started the day in, head to toe, fancy dress, giant hat, heels, and ended up before the evening was over with standing around like a 55-gallon drum with, a fire in it, in that same outfit, having a beer with, some random people. You just don't know what your social calendar is going to hold.
I must say, though, it's much classier than Preakness. Preakness is a lot more of that 55-gallon drum. It's a little more on the Ozfest side, I think, than it is.
Yeah.
So, Joe, what about you? Any differences from what Peggy gave us?
On the Derby?
You're an Oaks guy.
I used to go always to the Oaks because I had been to the Derby and just was overwhelmed, with 130,000 people and a whole lot of them I didn't know. So I'd start to go to the Oaks because there were people I did know. Now that's got the same way. It's well over 100,000 people. So you go to Thurby. And the really fun thing, this is like an insider item, so don't spread this to everybody. But what's really good is to go to the track on about Wednesday, because they have it all fixed up, really beautified for the Derby, and the Derby people aren't there yet. So
That's right.
all of the locals go and have a lot of fun.
I will tell you though, one of the best like Oaks Day events. So the box where we usually are and historically have been is right on one of the big aisles on the third floor clubhouse. And a classic thing, because my dad happens to be a good people watcher. So he would sit right there on the aisle and watch people. And you would be amazed how many former students would come walking down the aisle and go, "It's Dr. Hagerty. Dr. Hagerty, can I get a selfie with you, Dr. Hagerty?" And the next thing you know, we've got all these students up trying to take their picture with, the celebrity of the moment.
I didn't remember half of them, but you don't tell them that.
That's all right. Yeah, they remember you, which is important.
Sometimes for the wrong reasons. I had one student, a former student, I helped a little bit on one of his papers he's writing now, and he wrote me back an email after I sent him some comments. He said, "You're a gift of God." I think most of my students felt like I came from the other side, But there you go.
We got one more Louisville question in here, and really this should have been paired up with the Orvis one, because one of the things I love about going to the regional conferences around the whole U.S. is to hear about a lot of the local issues that people are presenting on, and that's fascinating to me. I think the first year I went to Orvis, it was all about the Ohio River crossings, and I really enjoyed that. So what one thing, and this question is for both of you, do people need to know about geotechnical engineering in the Louisville area?
Well, variability. I had the experience that shortly after I did finish my PhD and I came back to Louisville, I got a telephone call one day and it was Dr. Peck. And he said, "Oh, Joe, I'm coming down to Louisville. I have a consulting job in the area. Would you like to have breakfast with me tomorrow?" This is like God saying, "Do you want to come to heaven?" So I said, "Sure." So I get there and he says, "Oh, this other guy is going to join us." It was Lawrence Bierum from the Geotechnical Institute in Norway. So, there's two giants and me, I'm a dwarf right in the middle. And I was really nervous. So Dr. Peck was always a real nice guy. So he's trying to calm me down a little bit. And he says, "Joe, tell Lawrence about your experiences here in Louisville." I thought, "Yeah, come on, you guys are just being too nice." And Bierum said, "No, I really want to hear about it." So I did just, at this end of the county, you're on limestone, you got karst topography, you're in hard rock conditions. And as you come, you get into shales that are degradable, and then you get into the area where it's all, glacial fluvial stuff, and you get 100 feet of sand and gravels, and then you get to where the partial damming of the river caused a big floodplain deposit of soft clays. And this is it, and I kind of got really funny feeling, like, boy, I've been rambling on. And I said, "I'm sorry, I just ran on." Bierum really surprised me. He looked at me and says, "Oh, this is so much better than that boring Norwegian clay," which I thought was really a nice thing to say, whether he meant it or not. A nice thing to say. So that's the thing. Variability. You can do almost everything right here within 10 miles of where I'm sitting.
Peggy, what about you? Anything to add? Anything different?
Sinkholes. You've heard it from me enough. My best life, if I could have my dream, I would just have people call me all day and go, "Come jump in our sinkhole. Come explore our sinkhole. Tell us what to do about it." Fortunately, I live in an area where, from here, and particularly you get over into southern Indiana, you go down in central Kentucky, we have nothing but sinkholes, which is unfortunate for some people, but fortunate for me because I love them.
And it's a real anxiety for her father when she jumps in the sinkhole, because she'll usually say, "Now take my picture."
This is true.
So one final question, and we might have a little bonus here at the end, but one final question. Since Father's Day is coming up in just a few days, this is the one we teased at the beginning. What is your favorite Father's Day memory? I don't know who we're going to start with on this one. You're going to have to duke it out.
I don't know. I've had so many. I've been blessed. I have 4 children. Now I have grandchildren. And I had a whole lot of pseudo children, all those students. And as Peggy said, I end up seeing a lot of them all the time. And it's like, Father's Day all year. They come up and, they want to tell me about, well, when I was teaching, they'd always come in the office and say, I got a problem I'd like to talk to you about. And I think it was, oh, man, I better see what I'm doing, foundation engineering here, And they'd ask me things like, I really need to know if I should get married. I mean, you talk about the real stumpers, and then you keep track of the ones I told to get married and they're still happy and married, So I have a lot of those. And those are the Father's Day, if you will, my Father's Day all year.
That is fantastic. Peggy, what about you?
I don't really have Father's Day memories because we usually spend Father's Day. It's like you cook out, you don't do anything. I mean, what do fathers want to do? They want to do nothing. So that's what we do. I do have Joe Hagerty memories. And there are two in particular that I can mention. The first one is when we were little, and he said there are four of us and we are all like spaced very close together, like Irish Catholic spaced close together. And so we had this old green station wagon, and we would go. My dad would have like a consulting job or a conference, and so we would use it as our opportunity, young poor people, to go someplace where Chattanooga, woohoo, or the middle of nowhere. And so we were on one of those trips. The car would always break down. And so we would then, we're little and we have nothing to do with it. And my poor dad would end up spending all his time fixing the car or whatever. So we're driving through the mountains of North Carolina, and we get to Bryson City, North Carolina. And all of a sudden the car starts like coughing and choking, and there's smoke coming out of it that's not like any smoke we've ever seen, like a lot. And we get to this bridge and the car just stops, and my dad yells, "Get out!" So we all jump out, and as we're jumping out, it starts making this noise we've never heard before. And my dad yells, "Get down, it's gonna blow." And so all of us go down on the little slope looking up at the bridge, and we're all like this. I can only imagine people going past as the car is like making this noise and finally stopping, and we're looking, waiting for it to explode. And then we hear over this way, "Can we do something?" And it was the staff of Uncle Bill's Fishing Shack. And they came over and they're staring at us, they're staring at the car. And long story short, they ended up taking all of us inside, put my mom in the kitchen with her feet up, told us kids, do not talk to her because she's had enough of you today. And then my dad went, because this was a Sunday, my dad went in town and the guy opened up the mechanic shop so that they could fix the car and get us on our way. Because bless your hearts is exactly what they said. So
nicest people you'd ever want to meet.
And this leads to my other story, because this was always my dad. He was always the one, okay, I'll take care of it. The rest of us were sitting there eating ice cream and he's off to take care of the car. So when I got my first apartment in college, my mom went with me to see it, gave me okay, I don't know that I like this place, but all right. And I went to move in, and of course, again, we weren't the Rockefellers, and it was like, okay, this will be fine. I have my bed, and I can put stuff on the floor. And the night before I was going to move, my dad came out of the basement where things got made and duct tape got applied to things. And he said, "Here." And he had gone to the dumpster at U of L and gotten a couple of big packing crates. And he had made me a bookshelf and a nightstand and a dressing table out of packing crates, so that if you turned them over, it said University of Louisville on them. And I used like scraps of material that I had for making clothes and costumes and stuff and covered them. And I thought I was just the most wealthy, she-shiest person on the planet.
That is fantastic. Both excellent stories. Since we're at the end here, and since we have Ralph Peck's birthday coming up in just a few days, Joe, we got to ask if you got one more Ralph Peck story. Putting you on the spot here.
You got to tell the submarine story.
No,
no, that was it. That was at his house. Yeah.
Yeah, I had some really good stories of Dr. Peck. One of them, he had a class where he taught from case histories, and he'd introduce a case, and we all listened. And then we had to go write a summary of the case on one piece of paper. That's all you had. It took him, 10 sheets to make his report. We had to do it on one piece of paper. And then you come back, and I remember one time I was really proud of myself. I had 2 things to contribute. This was a case where they were worried about settlement, and down in the basement of this building, they had all their computers. That was one thing. So I told him, I said, well, I had worked with the computers, back at the University of Louisville, and all the computer frames that you're worried about, all this apparatus, they got adjustment screws on the bottom. So no problem at all. So that was one. I had a plus, I felt really good about that. Next class, we're talking about a problem where the sand was very loose. So he's going to consider injecting something in there to solidify the sand. And Dr. Peck said, you people find out about it, see if this is feasible. So I called a friend of mine I knew in construction, and I knew he had a job like this. So I got from him all the information on how to do it, and the prices, everything. They come into class, and Dr. Peck asked, does anybody have any input? And I was really proud of myself. I said, yes, Dr. Peck, I know all about the cost. And I gave the cost. And he looked at me and he said, are you sure about that? And I looked at my notes. I said, yeah, I'm sure. And then he looked again. He says, are you sure about that? I knew I was in big trouble. But he was really nice. He didn't say anything else. And I looked at it and I realized I had given these costs in terms of dollars per cubic foot instead of dollars per cubic yard. So I was only off by a factor of 27, and I said, oh no, that was a little bit of an error on my part. That's what he said, yes, I think so. Yeah, that's what he did though. He could show you where you're wrong, but he showed you in a nice way. And then let's go ahead and go on from there. So that's kind of like a general memory of him, and it's really the way our relationship was. I felt really good because he came to know Peggy really well, and he made a remark to me one day. He said, I feel like I have a granddaughter in the profession. So that's the kind of guy he was.
That is amazing, and a great way to finish up on a bonus question where you didn't know you were going to get it in advance. So great storytelling. You did not disappoint today. I knew you guys were going to come through. What a fantastic Father's Day episode. So for all of our viewers out there, thanks for sticking with us till the end. I usually say if you like it, well, if you wouldn't have stuck with us to the end if you didn't like it. So go click subscribe, click get notifications, and you will know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. And a happy Father's Day to all the fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers watching Director's Cut. I hope there are many. So Joe and Peggy, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
I hope it was a good time, and we're counting down already. You guys did before we started recording to Louisville football in the fall, and it's going to be big the same way it always is.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you guys getting all spirited up for this. That is excellent.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
We're always represented.
So for all of our viewers out there, just a couple more episodes of Director's Cut before our summer break. So we will see you with a brand new one in 7 days.